Guess it's time to do another one here. Sure do make a lot of friends with this, teaching the truth, because that's what I teach. If you disagree with me, then that's fine too. It doesn't matter. Because I'm going to cover something else that has been so twisted around. When Jesus was on the cross, he makes a statement, and they say, oh, well, see, he had the sins of the whole world on him, and he thought that God had forsaken him. Nonsense. Christ was the master teacher. He was teaching all the way up until he died to those who would listen. Can you hear what he was saying? Let's read it. Matthew 27, verse 45. Now from the 6th hour there was darkness over all the land unto the 9th hour. And I always get emotional when I read these things, but we'll do the best we can. 46, and about the 9th hour Jesus cried with a loud voice, saying, what did he say here? Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. That is to say, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? God did not forsake Christ. Christ was Emmanuel in the Hebrew, with us God, God with us. He couldn't forsake himself. What was he doing when he said this? We'll get to that. He was teaching. He was pointing us back to Psalms 22. And he was saying, look back in Psalms 22. It was written long ago that this would take place. And it was taking place. God did not forsake him. He was God in the flesh. Some of them that stood there when they heard that said, this man calleth for Elias. And straightway one of them ran and took a sponge and filled it with vinegar and put it on a reed and gave him to drink. Verse 49, the rest said, let be, let us see whether Elias will come to save him. Verse 50, Jesus, when he had cried out again with a loud voice, yielded up the ghost. He died on the cross right after teaching us. What was he teaching us here? Well, let's go back to Psalms 22. I might skip around it, but I don't know. Let's see what we come up with. Psalms 22. This is what Christ was teaching us. God didn't forsake him. Stop teaching that stuff. God can't. How could God forsake himself? Do you believe that Christ was God in the flesh, or do you not? Let's see what it says here. My God, why hast thou forsaken me? Why art thou so far from helping me and from the words of my roaring? Verse 2, O my God, I cry in the daytime, but thou hearest not, and in the night season, and am not silent. David was surrounded by armies in a historical sense, but this is prophetic of the crucifixion. Verse 3, but thou art holy, O thou that inhabitest the praises of Israel. Verse 4, our fathers trusted in thee, they trusted, and thou didst deliver them. Remember, Christ was pointing us back to this scripture, this chapter, Psalms 22. Verse 5, they cried unto thee and were delivered, and they trusted in thee and were not confounded. Verse 6, but I am a worm and no man, a reproach of men, and despised of the people. What were they doing when he was hanging on the cross? The Kenites, the descendants of Cain in the crowd. Stop teaching the apple story. Verse 7, all they that see me laugh me to scorn. They shoot out the lip, they shake the head, saying. Verse 8, he trusted on the Lord that he would deliver him. Let him deliver him, seeing he delighted in him. Mocking him, hanging on the cross. Verse 9, but thou art he that took me out of the womb. Thou didst make me hope when I was upon my mother's breast. Verse 10, I was cast upon thee from the womb. Thou art my God from my mother's belly. Verse 11. But be not far from me, for trouble is near, for there is none to help. Verse 12. Many bulls have compassed me, strong bulls of Bashan have beset me round. Verse 13. They gaped upon me with their mouths. The Kenites, the descendants of Cain. That's who was in the crowd. That's who said crucify him when they had to choose between him and Barabbas. Stop teaching the apple story. As a ravening and a roaring lion. Verse 14, I am poured out like water, and all my bones are out of joint. Written how long before it happened? 1,000 years, I think. My heart is like wax. It is melted in the midst of my bowels. Verse 15, my strength is dried up like a potsherd, and my tongue cleaveth to my jaws, and thou hast brought me into the dust of death. Verse 16, for dogs have compassed me, the descendants of Cain. And again, there's no apple in that story. Stop teaching it. You're misleading God's children when you teach that nonsense. The assembly of the wicked have enclosed me. They pierced my hands and my feet. Verse 17, I may tell all my bones, they look and stare upon me. And we could continue on. Jesus was teaching hanging on the cross. He was saying, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? So that we would go back to Psalms 22 and read it. It's really that simple. God could not forsake himself. And it was the descendants of Cain that were responsible for the crucifixion. And they were the ones in the crowd saying, crucify him. Free Barabbas. That's what they were doing. And again, stop twisting Scripture to accommodate theology.